Hey guys, what's up? How you doing? And welcome back to the channel. Today I've got another Wars of Arda battle for you, this time on Cardin Outpost featuring yours truly. We have Argus over there playing as my ally in the settlement, and we've got Bilbo and Tunnel Snake who are attacking. I'm playing as a more of a reinforcing army, so Argus, the rules of this is Argus playing as Gondor has as soon as he can as soon as he takes his first loss, it means that a time starts counting down, and 6 minutes from that timer going off, that means that I can then start marching, not running, just walking over, and then 3 minutes after that I can actually start running across in order to reinforce him. And all Tunnel Snake and Bilbo have to do is just completely finish off Argus. So we will go through the army comps of the attackers first, starting with Bilbo, playing as Umbar. So this is almost a this is a bit this is related to the Kin Strife. Obviously we've got Castamir, the southerner, who's pretty not happy with how things are going, and he's going to be represented by Tunnel Snake playing as Harondor, and his Umbarim allies obviously are represented by Bilbo's Adunaroth Empire force. And obviously we've got Gondor defending the settlement from this combined assault, and we have got Belfalas, Dolamroth reinforcing him. So that's the way this battle is going. I should have another look at Elrond for you relatively soon. Obviously, the Meerdain model you saw in the last replay isn't the finished thing. I've got a replay at the moment that's got it in, but I'm trying to get a better one, probably a 2v3 I'm thinking. For that, maybe a 3v4 if we can get the numbers. But anyway, let's get into Bilbo's army. Starting off with, I believe it's 3 units of Adunaroth garrison. It's 3 or 4. I think you get 3 before the red. And in fact, yeah, he's brought 3 of them. These guys just, they're a pretty good unit of spears, all things considered. Obviously, 141 men in the units. They're not like elven quality or anything, but for a unit of spearmen of men, they can hold their own pretty well. Obviously, units like swordsmen will do relatively efficient against them because of that spear malice, but they are pretty resilient with that armor. And obviously, their slight Numenorian heritage means that they are going to be unbreakable, I believe, in melee, and they've got a little bit of quality there. Then moving on to their brothers, the Adunaroth Legion cohort. These guys sword and board, but they have a few volleys of javelins to throw before they close into melee. Again, pretty good, unbreakable because of that Numenorian blood, and they've got relatively low man count, so that could come back to bite them in the butt. But again, lower man counts does mean they are slightly higher individually in terms of quality than stuff like the bog standard Gondor or Dol Amroth units. Now then, Corsair Pikeman, he's got a couple of units, 3 units of these in fact. Basically just bog standard pikes, really, nothing too special to them. But they just offer that phalanx. Even at a low tier, having a phalanx is extremely useful. And the numbers they have means that they can take arrow fire relatively well without it hurting them too much. But obviously, the lack of a shield and low armor does mean that they will suffer. And their lack of actual stats in melee means that if you can break up that formation they have, or if you can match it, chances are you will beat it in terms of quality really quite handily. Now, in here we've got the Ebon Legion of Umbar, Recently, Umbar got a overhaul to their bodyguard tier units. Now the Gilded Legion and Ebon Legion are once again 2 HP. And of course the Minalardu, they've always been 2 HP. They're still retaining that. They've just got a couple of once elite 1 HP units turned back into 2 HP units. And the Ebon Legion of Umbar, they're again much higher tier pike. That second hit point could come in very handy against a lot of what both of us have to offer here today, me and Argus. In fact, I think with the army Argus has gone for, he doesn't actually have any 2 HP units of his own. So these guys could be very, very potent if left to their own devices and they don't get molested by arrows. Now, the Gilded Legion of Umbar, these guys, again, sword and board infantry, really, really quite solid. And they've got an extra 10 men in their unit compared to most other sword and board units at this point. The changes I made in the latest build means that pretty much every sword and board unit except for the elven one is now at 73 men in a unit, with the Arbony Arendelle, the elven one, being at 63, but they have higher quality because of being elven to compensate for that. So these guys just pretty bog standard bodyguard unit, nothing special, but it's just another 2 HP unit for me and Argus to have to grind our way through. Then he has brought, I think, 2 units of Adunaroth Legion steel bows, although I could be wrong. These guys, AP missiles. Obviously, ammo has just been massively curtailed across the board in pretty much every faction. But yeah, in every faction. So steel bows now, where once they had maybe 14 arrows to get their damage off, now they only have 7 or 8. Which does mean that you do have to pick your targets a lot more wisely. But again, the AP arrows that these guys pack could cause a lot of issues for our force. And of course, they're not bad in melee, and they've got that Numenorian blood, so they are unbreakable, I believe. Now, Corsair crossbowmen, again, even more AP missiles. Crossbows took less of an ammo hit than archers, I believe. But even so, they only have about 10 volleys before they have to charge into melee. I mean, they're not the worst at it. You can see they've got that little shield on their back that they can pull out in melee, just meaning they're slightly more resilient to A, arrow fire, and B, slightly tankier in melee. And again, the stopping power that crossbows can provide could cause a lot of issues for us on the defense. And last but certainly not least, we have the Minalardu Nazrakadar, 2 HP steel bows, so AP missiles, pretty high damaging ones at that. And to top it all off, they double up as a spear and shield bodyguard. So these guys, they are just incredibly, incredibly good for what you pay for them. I believe I may have given them a slight buff, but also price increase up to maybe 1700. But I think at this point they were still 1600 in terms of cost. And then over to the other side of the settlement, where we have Tunnel Snake playing as Harondor, or Castamir's force. He has brought a front line of patrician units, 2 units of patrician, 3 units of patrician hoplites even, and another 3 units of patrician legionnaires. These guys pretty good for their price point. Obviously 120 men in the unit, so you don't have many men, but the men you do have are really quite potent, and they do have some javelins that they can get off before they do end up having to charge into melee. And patrician hoplites, these guys just a pretty good bog standard spear unit. Not really bog standard, they're more of a heavy tier, high tier spear unit, but mid to high, I would say, tier spear unit. But these guys, they're perfectly capable of keeping an assault going or just holding that front line, whatever you need them for. He's gone for 2 units of Harondor crossbowmen. Again, we've spoken about the stopping power that crossbows can provide, and just that AP at range. It's going to be really dangerous. And top it all off, these guys, with those 2-handed axes they have on their back, they're AP in melee as well. So, and especially against Gondor, who defensively rely somewhat on that armor, they could be incredibly, incredibly efficient. He also has a trebuchet here, which artillery could get a lot of damage off of him, although Argus isn't really offering him too many tempting targets with that trebuchet there, and he doesn't have it on flaming shot at the moment either, I believe. I think we just saw the bog standard boulders there, so maybe going for that more accuracy but lower damage trade-off. Now, Harondor pikemen, again, sort of similar to what the Corsair pikemen from before offer, except slightly higher tier, and they do have a shield on their back, which does give them a slight bit more resilience to missiles, and as does that armor, actually. Although any AP missiles myself, or Argus have brought will be extremely effective against them. Then, in behind these guys, similar to Umbar as well, the Principality of Harondor do have a 2 HP pike unit. The Silver Shields of Gobel Merlon just offer a pike unit that will keep your front line going for a very, very long time, and none of us are really sure why they're so much tankier than other pike units. Maybe it's to do with just like slightly more men in the unit, but I'm not 100% sure either. It could just be something weird to do with armor or something, or maybe they just have higher defensive stats and less armor. I'm not too sure. Maybe it's just the shield value. They've got a bigger shield value. That's the other option. Yeah, these guys, they offer a very, very strong 2 HP unit. Then he's got 2 units, I believe. Yeah, that does look like 2. Yeah, 2 units of Agarth champions. These guys, axes in melee, so they've got that AP. Only 1 hit point though, so that lower model count can put them in a bit of bother. I believe Tunnel Snake's General is in one of these guys. If I can just find him. That might be him there, but I'm not sure. But yeah, his General is in one of those 2 guys, so it's not a bad spot to put him, but obviously the Silver Shields, he doesn't want to put it in there because he just wants to be able to use them, I'm assuming. Then he's got a decent cavalry force of a unit of patrician cavalry, obviously your higher tier, not highest, but higher tier standard cav. I believe these guys have some precursor javelins they can fire off before closing into melee as well. And then you've got the Harondor cavalry, who are just your bog standard horsemen. Nothing too special about them. They've got a decent shield value, decent armor, decent charge. But other than that, they're nothing to write home about. The Royal Cataphracts of House Silverlight, however, while they are still only 1 HP and do have that lower model count, they can be extremely potent. Got a big bonus against cavalry, and they've got decent mass, so even though their charge bonus is relatively low for cavalry at 7, you can still inflict a lot of damage on the charge. But as you can see, they are maces in melee, which means that they're pretty dangerous against armored targets. So armor on cavalry is no protection against them. I believe he does have some like lower tier missile units like the Harnan Herdsman or Agarth Ambushers just skulking about here hidden. These guys, while they are really quite low tier, they're all AP at this point in terms of missiles, so they can get a decent amount of damage done before they end up closing into melee and getting massacred. But now let us move on to Argus's force. Playing as Gondor, he's actually gone for a relatively low tier but spammy approach, having, I believe, 3 units of basic Gondor archers. Don't quote me on that though. Spear infantry, Pelargir marines, maybe he's stuck a unit up here, there. Yeah, there we are. 3 units of basic Gondor archers. Again, nothing to write home about, but they do have slightly more ammo than stuff like the steel bows. That could come in very, very useful. And that armor they have does keep them alive in melee against non-AP forces relatively well. And of course, it protects them in a prolonged skirmish fight, which is what you want to be using Gondor archers for. However, if you can get some shots into the back of them, in that choke point there especially, they can be really quite damaging if they choose the right targets. Now he's got a few units of Dunedain militia. These guys obviously just really, really low tier spears. Absolutely nothing to write home about. They're just there to really make up the numbers. And they've got a decent anti-cav bonus, so you don't want to leave your cavalry units in prolonged melee with them because, again, they will get their value off really quite quickly. Again, 350 their cost is, I believe. It might even be 300, so again, obviously, you're not going to be using these. You don't want to rely on them to hold down a front line by themselves. So it's a good thing he's got a couple of units of Fountain Guard and Nimroth in these two front lines here. These guys are very, very potent. I almost want to say halberds. Like, they look like a pike, but they don't quite have the reach. And they are also AP. But no, they are pikes because they don't have that axe on the end. But they function really like halberds. AP, slightly shorter range, but if they can hold up a front line, they will be extremely, extremely damaging in the long term, getting many, many kills. He's brought 3 units of Pelargir Marines, I believe. With the armor upgrades, they look like the Seafarers of Nindamos over from Reforged. And these guys just really quite damaging javelins at range, and then they are also AP and melee. And they're not bad melee combatants, 143 men in the unit. With that, you'd expect them to be relatively, like, weak, but they're pretty good in melee, and that added manpower just makes them so much better. Now, the bread and butter of this Argus army is obviously the Gondor sword and spear infantry. If I can find some of them. These guys obviously just really, really basic. Absolutely nothing to write home about, but Gondor spear infantry are obviously going to be best in Dunedain militia. And the fact they have that added decent armor does make them significantly more survivable against non-AP sources of damage. There's another unit of Gondor archers, so he's brought 4 of them. Few units of Gondor spear infantry, and Argus has also brought a trebuchet, so hoping to get some decent damage off with that artillery piece. And Gondor sword infantry, these guys, just basic sword and board infantry. They're pretty much what every unit in the mod is balanced around, so they are just the bog standard, essentially. Not bad in melee at all, but again, they're not the most potent in melee either. Stuff like Adunaroth Legion Cohort will do very, very nicely against them. They have the numbers to hold down a front line for a decent chunk of time. And the Axeman of Lasarnak, which is not where his general is a really quite elite in terms of this Argus army unit of infantry. In the grand scheme of things as Gondor, they are probably upper mid-tier, I would say. They've got that massive two-handed axe, and they've got that little buckler there offering them a little shield value, which will, again, protect them from missiles. They've got that standard Gondorian armor, which will, again, will keep them relatively safe from missiles and other non-AP sources of damage. And the AP and massive attack values they have with that two-handed axe does mean they will do very nicely, cleaving through stuff like Adunaroth Legion Cohort and Adunaroth Garrison with relative ease. And finally, if I just go up to 0.5 speed while I go through my army, because I'm not going to be doing particularly much, I have brought a unit of Untitled Champions, and in fact my general is in here. These guys, they are only 1 HP, but they are very potent missiles, and they are also sword masters in melee, which means that they can get a lot of kills at range, but even out of ammo, they're still really quite useful to you. Not obviously, they're not AP, but they are very, very strong against non-armored targets. Which, I mean, there's going to be a decent amount of them, considering the sheer amount of Corsairs on the field from Bilbo, and also stuff like Agarth ambushers, even Harondor crossbow. Even the Harondor units aren't the most heavily armored. So they should do pretty nicely in melee against those. Then next to these guys, I have brought a couple of units of Perithil Foresters. Again, these guys decent at range, but obviously they're also elves, as all the Perithil units are elves. So they've got that slightly higher quality to them. And they are, I believe, two-handed swords in melee, so again, like the Perithil champions, they will cleave their way through low armored targets, and even some of the more elite Harondor forces will suffer against them. But they are still predominantly missiles, so a dedicated melee infantry unit like something like the patrician units will be too tough of a force for these guys to handle. Couple of units of Sentinels of the Seaward Tower, just for that polearm. It's a short polearm, but it's AP, so there's a bit of a trade-off there. And I'm just hoping that these guys can do the damage that I really, really need them to get done, really. That's the hope, at least for me. Whether I can get them set up inside the settlement in order to do that, or I can get them set up in a choke point on the attack in order to use them as they are meant to do, remains to be seen. But if I can do that, they will be a very, very nice force to have brought. Couple of units of Dismounted Knights of the Silver Swan. These guys, very, very good melee infantry. They don't quite stack up to stuff like elves, but they're the best melee offering the Principality of Belfalas has. That is 1 HP, I would say. And they're one-on-one, they are probably the best 1 HP unit in melee on the field, I would say. Obviously, if you like double up on them with a couple of units of Adunaroth Legion cohort, things start to get a little bit grey. But if they can get into one-on-one fights with other 1 HP units, and I can support them when support is needed, they will do very, very nicely for themselves. And a lot of my support here comes in the form of 5 units of Belfalas Marines. These guys, nowhere near the quality level of Pelargir Marines from Gondor, but they are still axes in melee, so they do have that dual AP nature. And I have given them 2 levels of armor upgrade here. Just give me a minute. I have given them 2 levels of armor upgrade here, so they should be slightly more resilient against non-AP damage at the very least. And with that massive shield they've got a pretty decent shield value to go on top of that. Offensive stats wise in terms of melee, they're nothing to write home about. They might get some decent kills on Tunnel Snake or Bilbo's army, but the real reason you bring them is obviously the javelins first and foremost. But the fact they can double up as okay makeshift infantry once they've used all their ammo up is a big thing for them as well. Guard of the Haven Wing is a very, very strong 2 HP unit. AP Swordmasters, so even they might actually stack up favorably against stuff like Silver Shields, provided they don't get caught on the edge of those pikes, caught on the end of those pikes. And I mean, they've got enough aggressive and defensive stats because of that second hit point and the fact they're 2-handed swords to mean that there's not many things on the field today that can one-on-one go up against them. Obviously, if they get mobbed or shot by stuff like javelins or trebuchets, then or charged by cav, that's another big thing. Stuff like that is going to do a lot of damage to them and probably nullify them a decent amount in the grand scheme of things. But if they can just get isolated damage off, they can get a lot of it. I've also brought a couple of units of Dunedain Militia because numbers. Some cav on my side here, Knights of the Silver Swan and Royal Court of House Adrahil, just hoping that I can get some decent charges off on either Tunnel Snake or Bilbo's like unprotected missiles if they get into the city not quite in the nick of time. If I can just pounce on some of those unprotected units, these guys can very quickly just pay for themselves, I would say. Because both these units have that 20 charge bonus that few cavalry units actually possess, short of 2 hit point ones. So that could actually be very, very big in their favour. And last but certainly not least, 2 units of Black Swan Arbalists. Just the crossbows that these guys have, that AP punch is going to be very nice. And they do double up as sword and board units in melee. And not bad ones at that. So they could be a very, very important asset to this defense or reclamation that I will have to put up. But without further ado, let us begin. So I believe we have had our first bit of damage done to Argus by this point. But yeah, you can see a few dead bodies on the ground there. And Argus is just biding his time, waiting. And I mean, Tunnel Snake is taking his time as well, just setting up as much as he can. Keeping a few units back here, which isn't a bad shout, but mostly he's got a decent chunk of his units, a decent portion of his army over here. Obviously his hidden units are still very much over here. In fact, yeah, we can see here a couple of units of Harondor Hunters. These guys not scary at all, but it's just the volume of them that is the main issue that you might find. Having to deal with 251 guys, it's never a fun task, especially when they're missiles like this. I'm just very glad they're not AP missiles, otherwise they could be very, very annoying. Although I do believe that, I'm sure Harondor Hunters were slings, but I'm evidently wrong. But I'm sure Harondor do have a slinger unit somewhere in their roster. They definitely have Javies. And not just the patrician units. Agar the Ambushers are another unit of Javies that they have. We didn't see the Haradrim Auxiliary Slingers in the Army Comp phase either. These guys AP at range and in melee with that axe they have on their belt. So these guys, they will be pretty well set to deal with Gondor, to be honest. Obviously a lot of what Argus has brought today does rely on that armor value there. So just being able to bypass that, it's not too bad for them. And yeah, the time is slowly but surely ticking down to when I can start making moves here. Start marching across that land bridge there. And hopefully just reinforce my ally before his defense is just completely spent, really. Over here, we've got a pretty decent melee fight starting out already. Adunaroth Garrison, I believe it's a few units of them there. Actually, Argus even. Yeah, he's got his Pelargir Marines up here just shooting into the back of them. That is a very, very good use of those Pelargir Marines, actually. Because you're evidently getting it into the unprotected side of the Adunaroth Garrison, because shields, they defend the front and left. So when he was there, they may have actually still been getting some of that shield value, because it is well, it is on the left, but obviously it's to the back left. So I'm not 100% sure how that quite works, but obviously shooting from this side is the safer option anyway. And you can see here just how useful the fact that the Adunaroth units have that unbreakable trait is being for them. However, AP javelins to the back is never a fun thing for anyone to have to deal with. Least of all if armor is one of the few things that actually keeps you alive from missiles. And obviously that AP nature they have in melee does mean Pelargir Marines, even once they've used up all of their ammo, are still going to be useful in melee. Now, obviously, the melee fight is going to be very, very grindy here. Spear on spear combat never really ends particularly quick. I mean, with the addition of Pelargir Marines, that more aggressive AP edge might make it so that this does end a lot quicker. But I mean, this is a decent amount of force from Bilbo that has been somewhat annihilated almost. I mean, a lot of Pelargir Marines I can see here dead, presumably from these Adunaroth Legion steelbows here. They've got a decent angle into the back of them there. And Bilbo hasn't actually started pressuring here, which is why Arx has felt relatively comfortable just taking troops from this defense to post them over here. I mean, I don't really blame him for that. It's a pretty good shout, all things considered. I mean, these guys, they are, I think, out of ammo. They might have, like, a little bit of ammo left. I'm not 100% sure. But I think they do, because I can still see a couple of them with their javelins out. So they've clearly got a little bit of ammo left. In fact, there we go. There's Gondor's general. In a unit of Gondor sword infantry, no less. And nothing's actually happened from the front over here. Nothing interesting has actually happened. And over here, I am starting to march over. But seeing this, Bilbo being the absolute rat that he is. I mean, this isn't against the rules, but he is being a bit of a rat for this. He's deciding, haha, no, you're not getting across this bridge without me shooting you. And he is moving some of his javelins over to hit me. And actually, yeah, another unit we didn't see in the arm comp phase is the Castamir's Rangers. These guys just crossbows as well. There's a lot of crossbows that Umbar actually have in this mod, that all things considered. With the Castamir's Rangers being a high tier one and them having 2 units of Corsair crossbowmen just offering a more lower tier offering in that regard. But pretty soon I am actually able to start running across this bridge, I believe. And I'm slightly confused about where to go at this point, because if I try and break through here, there's all of Tunnel State's cav that could be a bit of a headache. And looking over here, I see, hang on, it looks like most of Tunnel Snake's forces have actually been committed at this point. In fact, I do think that might be the general, actually. In fact, yeah, that is most likely the general. It looks very generally. Because I know his general is in one of the Agarth champions, and that does look like it's the only one on the field actually today. Yeah, at this point, I'm allowed to start running. And I just think, alright. Tunnelsake actually looks like he's relatively, like, defeated over here. I didn't realize... Oh, wait, no, he does have a second unit of them. He's already committed them. That's why I can't see them over there. But I see, hey, this attack's actually started. Maybe he's lost more than I thought he had. So I'm thinking, alright, my best shot might actually be just try and hammer straight through Tunnelsake over here. Leave almost a rear guard over here to protect from that cavalry there. And also just maybe to stop Bilbo really from just reinforcing him. So, I mean, even a unit of Dunedain militia, it offers a decent blocker, you would have to say. And I've got the quality here to be able to put, even if I don't completely defeat him here, I've got the opportunity to put a proper, like, blocker on him. A proper number on him. Just so that he can't really do anything else. And for the few units I do devote to this side, I'm thinking should be able to blunt Bilbo a little bit as well here. Knights of Silver Swan, I also thought, alright, Tunnelsake's got all of his cavalry over here, which means that if I just move them over here, Stuff like Agarth champions here, they're looking very, very chargeable. Obviously, pikes aren't. Taking out that trebuchet would be a real lifesaver for us. Or even just charging in stuff like Patrician Legionnaires, just reducing their number, getting some charges on Harondor crossbows. But this was devastating, really. That's a lot of my cavalry and marines just that died right there. So seeing that, I decide, right, no, I actually really need to start spreading out now. Otherwise, this is going to go really, really badly wrong for me. And obviously, Bilbo, seeing the fact that I've actually just gone all in on Tunnel Snake now, as my way to try and just break through. And yeah, this is also huge. Argus decided to help me here. Getting his trebuchet up here, getting some decent shots into these Patrician hoplites, these Harondor crossbowmen as well. And eventually he does turn his attention to this trebuchet here. Which again, it's not a bad shout. Trying to counter snipe artillery is really, really a good idea. But in my mind I'm thinking, ooh, Agarth champions and ooh, general. So I just think, alright, I'm going to move my knights over here, right? Maybe there's some units over here that are even more chargeable. Then I just decide, what am I thinking? I can just, like, sneak these guys through. If I can get through here, I can get into there, I can get around here, maybe into his crossbows. Who is actually turning to focus me down now. I'm trying to get my Belfalas marines into position to shoot his Patrician Legionnaires. I'm also shooting these Patrician Legionnaires with my arrows as well. But this unit of Belfalas Marines has been engaged by the Silver Shields, and that's a fight they will lose. My Black Swan Arbalest here, I'm just trying to get everyone I can back here. And at this point, it's just a case of trying to save everyone. Getting these Dundine Militia here, just get them in the way here, so this cavalry can't actually do much, is going to be very, very important. But at this point, I'm sort of sandwiched here. I know there's not really any way out for me here, so at this point I'm just thinking, I just need to get damage off, right? The less men these guys have left at the end of this, the better. Was going through my head here. And obviously, Argus here, going after this trebuchet, actually getting one right there. Which is pretty huge. Again, as you can see, this is the point at which I decide, you know what? Let's go for it. And I get the kill on the very first charge. I think that is like the first kill on this unit of Agarth champions I got. And at this point, I am so just focused on this fight here to make sure it doesn't go terribly wrong for me. And this fight back here, just make sure I can get my Dundine Militia just in the way of this cav. It does look like I charge into these Royal Cataphracts. Interesting. But Adunaroth Legion cohort charging into these guys. I'm trying to use my crossbows to great effect here. Adunaroth Legion cohort, again, not a very good target to go after. Haradrim Auxiliary Slingers now being turned my way. I mean, over here, Bilbo and Tunnel Snake have just devoted everything now to ensuring that I don't make it out of this alive. These Dismounted Knights of the Silver Swan will do wonders against the Adunaroth Legion cohort. Guild Legion of Umbar, that's another story, but even against them, they should do decently well, I would think. Perithal Foresters are coming over here. I don't remember this. I remember charging them over to here. I do not remember any of this, and like trying to shut down his crossbows and shut down his trebuchet and everything. These Patrician Legionnaires, they're very quickly realizing the error of their ways. They should have joined Belfalas, of course. We are just the best. And I'm just trying to... This is really confusing. I think this honestly might have actually desynced. Oh wait, no, maybe not. I am charging these Perithal Foresters over here, just to try and shut down this trebuchet. I do not want it firing my way. And I know it will. So I'm just trying to shut it down, and then there's plenty of other units I can just turn my attention to. Obviously, I did forget about my cav, but the damage was done. Tonosake's general falling is actually a pretty big deal considering it's Harondor. Stuff like Hana and your Harondor units, even patrician units, they will rout. And with the loss of a general, you can see here, these patrician legionnaires, normally they stay fighting until about 20 men, maybe 10 even. But against a lower tier unit, they are now wavering, and they will rout, which is really unfortunate here. Silver shields, of course, just absolute bastards to deal with. Halberds, they're not good enough to deal with silver shields. They just don't have the reach, really. The fact their AP is huge, but the lack of shields, the lack of range does make a pretty big difference here. And at this point, it's a case of just trying to shut down. Actually, no. What I do is I decide, right, you know what would actually be really smart to do here? I've got my Guard of the Haven Wing just butchering Patrician Hoplites right here. Get my Sentinels of Seawood Tower, trying to get my Black Swan Arbalest and Perithal Champions into a position where they can actually just get back inside the city at this point. Argus has got his Pelargir Marine shooting into the back of these Patrician Hoplites, which is a very, very wise use of his ammo. Because again, these guys are the main thing stopping me from getting inside the city at this point. I do actually move this unit of Black Swan Arbalest over here to shoot into the back of these guys, I think, as well. Although I could be wrong there. He's just desperately trying to whittle down my forces at this point. Hunters should actually lose that fight against Belfalas Marines. But with the pike support there, they should actually win that relatively handily. My Perithal Foresters, again, Patrician Hoplites truly showing their class here. They are the better unit in melee, and Perithal Foresters, while they're not bad, the armor of the Patrician Hoplites will keep them alive long enough to make this a fight a losing one. But seeing this crossbow unit, I know, alright, this unit has to get shut down now. Start shooting it, get my 2 HP Swordmasters in there, get some polearms. And a unit of them does rout, and he does try and run his other unit away. But at this point, I smell blood in the water. I'm thinking, alright, a decent chunk of his units are routing here. I'm javying these Silver Shields of Gobel Merlon down, or at least I'm trying to. But over here, it's a case of, I just need to try and hold as long as I can. Like, I know I'm losing this. In fact, I've pretty much already lost this side. So now with the Cav here, things do get very, very problematic. These Guild Legion of Umbar, again, that second hit point, just putting them in relatively good stead against my Dismounted Knights of the Silver Swan. Well, I think stats-wise, Silver Swan Knights are actually better than Guild Legion at this point. I could be wrong. That second hit point is extremely useful. And I am absolutely just trying to jab these guys in the back. It's the only place where you can jab them and it will do any meaningful damage because of that good shield value they have. And at this point, I know I'm probably going to end up losing this. Charging into Halberds is probably a bit of a mistake with this Patrician Cab, but provided he does get out of there, it shouldn't be too bad. Han and Hunter's probably not a great unit for me to try and shoot with Perithal Champions, but they're out of ammo now anyway, so it's not the end of the world. Over here, yeah, as you can see, I am just thinking, alright, shoot these guys in the back now. They don't get their shield value, and again, his general's dead. These guys, they will rout at. In fact, they're routing now. So at this point, I'm just like, do I take another volley, or do I stop them? Nope, I do take another volley, unfortunately. I mean, I guess it is just going to make sure they don't come back again. Aegard champions, however, are unbreakable, so they're going to have to be slaughtered down to the last man. Over here, my God of the Haven Wing, just showing how dangerous they really are. Just butchering their way through Aegard champions. And I've got a little bit of a, just like, block here. Obviously, javelins are going to be very, very effective, but I would actually rather they shoot their javelins into these sentinels, actually. But the damage here really has actually been done. I've given Tunnel's Sake a very, very big bloody nose here. And I mean, I've done some decent damage to Bilbo here as well. What I probably should have done was charged into Corsair Crossbowman with these Undying Militia, actually. They could have done decent work. But I've actually used up a decent amount of Bilbo's Javelins here. And I've actually pretty much got Tunnel Sake's force almost completely spent. Getting a charge into these Hardened Hunters again. 140 men, not that they're not going to have come the end of this engagement here. Margins like these could prove to be the decider of battles. This unit, now it's out of ammo, just saying nope and just leaves. Obviously over here, down to the last 3 Dismounted Knights of Silver Swan. Got 4 Belfalas Marines here, got some Belfalas Marines over here. At this point, I am literally just trying to get javelin after javelin off. Just taking down pikes, which are probably the best choice of javelins at this point. There's not enough of them to do any real lasting damage. So it's really just a case of just trying to get some kills off on some of their more important units. Sentinels of Seaward Tower here, there's not enough of them to actually hold against a unit like Adunaroth Legion cohort, because they do have that quality in them. So they will lose that fight, but they might get a few kills while they are dying. Meanwhile, these God of the Haven Wing, they are really starting to drop now. But again, the sheer amount of damage in terms of kills that has been done here, it's the kind of thing that could actually turn the tide of this battle. And the fact that I did actually manage to save a few of my units, I've got a couple of units of crossbows that still have ammo left. And I do still have my Untitled Champions here. That Swordmaster attribute that they do have does mean that they are very valuable in melee. And you'll never believe it, my general's still alive and well. So this is really, really quite nice, actually. Still got a few units left in the fight, so I'm not completely out of it. Tunnel Sake, again, yes, he's still got a few units left in the fight, but Hardened Hunters, they're not going to do anything. It's really just the pikes he's got that are going to be the main issue. And even then, we've got positions here where we can just shoot into the back of them. In fact, there's a unit of Gondor archers here just ready to exactly that. These Patrician Hoplites against Fountain Guard and Nimloth and Pelargir Marines, they are going to lose that fight. The armor that they almost rely on is not going to actually protect them in that engagement. Let's see, is there an engagement going on anywhere else? It does not appear so. So yeah, Bilbo's entire attention there. I had to defend against 2 armies, and I probably dealt a good amount of damage to them, all things considered. So got a few Guard of the Haven Wing out here, just being a bit annoying. Maybe getting the occasional kill on a unit like the Gilded Legion of Umbar, who are actually down to 46 men. The Silver Shields of Global Merlon's down to 42. So I mean, while Bilbo is obviously a massive issue at this point, I've used up most, if not all, of his javelin ammo. But the fact he's still got steel bow and crossbow ammo is an issue. And the Ebon Legion of Umbar, if we can't shoot them down, could be another issue entirely. Minoladu Nezrakadar as well, another 2 HP unit he's got. So there's still a lot of 2 HP units on the field from the attackers, and there's not actually any left on our side. Well, I offer a decent amount of quality here with the Black Swan Arbalists and my Untitled Champions. Them and the Fountain Guard and Nimloth are actually the only quality units we've really got left here. Pelargir Marines are decent, although not really like... They're not going to stand up to stuff like Minoladu and melee. Or would they actually? They might be exactly what the Ducks are ordered against the Minoladu. But this is where I would have loved to have some cab that I was able to retreat inside the city or something. Shooting from the back right is a very good choice of angles for these Gondor archers here. But again, the armor that these guys have is actually going to cause us a few issues here, actually. Meaning that none of them have actually dropped from those 2 volleys of arrows, I believe it is. And at this point, yeah, he's just switched targets, taking down these crossbows, because again, I've proven that Harondor here, they will rout. Especially the Harondor units. If you get these guys down to 20, they may actually just, like, leave for good. And this is all Harondor have left. I managed to get some decent kills over here on Umbar. I used up a decent amount of Bilbo's ammo in his javelins as well, which is your most high damage ammo, really. I don't think he's got any javelins left, to be honest. He's got some slinger fire, he's got most of his archer and crossbow ammo left. He didn't really use much of it, but I mean, there's this little force of Tunnel Snakes as well. But other than that, Tunnel Snake is pretty much spent. A lot of these Guild Legion are gone. The Adunaroth Legion cohort, there's a few units of those that are just gone now. Like, while, yes, I probably did get the worst end of that engagement, I did deal them both a very, very... Well, I dealt Tunnel Snake a very, very bloody nose here. He is not going to be feeling too good after that. I moved my Untitled Champions though, because I think, you know what, there's a lot of... Just being able to blitz through these guys really quickly is going to be huge. These Gondor archers here, they'll do much better against these Harondor pikemen. And in fact, they might actually rout them with enough missile fire going in there. But although if my memory serves me, they just flicker between wavering and shaken for like 5 minutes before they routed like 30 men left. These Adunaroth Legion cohort and Guild Legion of Umbar are also moving over here just to try and offer a little bit of unbreakable support to this front line, because again, stuff like Harondor pikemen, stuff like Hardened Hunters, they will absolutely rout here. So just shooting into the back of them, that could rout them. Ironically, when they're not getting shot at, they are wavering, and as soon as they start getting shot in the back, they just return to shaken. It's always somewhat amusing when that happens, just a unit is so feeble in its efforts that it just makes their morale better. Over here, Argus has actually just retreated yet more. I think he's moved his another unit of Gondor archers over to maybe this choke point here. And at this point, I'm just saying, Argus, just try and hold the front if you can. And I will offer as many units as I can in support of the rear side defense, because just dealing with this is going to be huge. It's an attack that will have actually fallen apart for the attackers, which is never a good thing as the attackers to see. Obviously, Silver Shields, if they... Like, the pike block they've got here, if these Fountain Guard don't really get involved, that could actually win them this choke, really. I know Untitled Champions are good and all, but again, just getting stuck on the end of a pike, no matter how elite you are, you're still going to lose that fight if you can't actually reach the enemy. But we are really starting to run out of ammo at this point. Pelargir Marines here, they've got some ammo left, but we are really just trying to save as many units as we can. Charge from that cavalry into the Dundine Militia. Again, that anti-cab bonus there could actually take decent effect here if Tunnel Snake allows his cavalrymen to stay in prolonged combat. That was a really wet noodle charge there, though I do think they did get a kill in the end there. So it's not too bad for them, but they do lose a man in that engagement, actually. At this point, Bilbo just content for his ally in Tunnel Snake to just soften things up, really. He's doing time militia, that weaker unit there, routing maybe in the face of that charge. But the secondary unit of it is going to do significantly better in melee against Harondor cavalry. Again, with that anti-cab bonus they possess. Even the Royal Cataphracts of House Silverlight won't thank themselves for staying melee with these guys. That armor and AP they have will be very useful against Gondor, but again, anti-cav, it's still going to be really quite good against them. And the longer these guys stay in melee, the less effective they're really going to be. Already, these Royal Cataphracts, they've lost a couple of men. Surprised the Harondor cavalry have held up so well against Dundee militia, but that said, they are still pretty weak. I believe rotting meat being used there by Argus, just in even more of an attempt to just rout these Harondor pikemen, because I need them to rout, really. These Honan Hunters routing is obviously pretty good. They're not going to do... They're just going to run through Argus's troops and they will get massacred there. If they keep on going that way, there's no way they're going to be coming back to the fight. But I need these guys, and I need these Adunaroth Legion cohort. I need them dead, really. So I can just shoot these Silver Shields here. I can shoot those Gilded Legion wherever they are. Oh, the Gilded Legion are here. I think I was shooting them, so Bill would just try to hide them behind the cliff face. Yeah, I'm just trying to shoot into the back of this infantry blob here. And you can see some of these crossbow bolts are hitting these Silver Shields. Some of them are starting to drop. But another important thing is just, if you can get rid of all the numbers here, you will actually just be able to force path your troops through. And if you can get past the Silver Shields, like, formation, even though they've got pretty good stats for polearms, they're not gonna thank you for it. It's gonna really start to reap a bloody harvest on them at some point, really, isn't it? These Harondor cavalry, this might be their final charge. They might get one more off, actually. And indeed, they actually do, it appears. But these Royal Cataphracts, their time is probably done. There's 2 of them left. Oh no, they do get out of there. Fair play. Really just trying to min-max results on these cav at this point, which, in a battle such as this, it does really come down relatively to the wire. I mean, it's like, it's more of a it's pretty much 1.3 versus 1.3 armies at this point. In fact, not even that, it's just like 1 versus 1. Argus has taken some casualties. Bilbo's taken a few casualties. Then me and Tunnel Snake are just like footnotes at this point. Although I would argue I'm slightly less of a footnote than he is. He's got some Harondor pikes here. He's got those Silver Shields. But other than that, he doesn't really have anything left. I mean, obviously he's got this cav here, but 9 men in a battle of 6,000 is... it's nothing really, is it? Getting some decent kills off on these charges. Obviously, with 7 men in the cav unit, it's not going to be many kills at all. And I reckon they're probably going to go down to 6 or 5 after this charge. I'd hope at least, especially with a unit of Gondor spear infantry arriving on the front line. Just that slight increase in quality will mean that the Harondor cavalry will just drop slightly quicker. They do actually get out of melee just about in time there. And I think Bilbo might be thinking about rekindling this melee fight here. Not doing anything over on this choke point, and obviously this choke point here. It's really just Harondor crossbowmen, Adunaroth Legion cohort, and Silver Shields at this point. Those Harondor pikemen do indeed a rout. And actually, no. There's another unit of Adunaroth Legion cohort here. Bilbo not completely out for the count on this front. In fact, yeah, no, I was shooting them at that point, so that he does pull them back ever so slightly further. To a point where I can't actually shoot them anymore. And we were actually getting around these silver shields. You can see they've lost about 4 men since we were here last, which... It's slow going, but at least they are starting to drop. But with the addition of these Adunaroth Legion cohort, that flanking attack is probably going to find itself cut down relatively shortly. What I probably should have done was... in fact, I might actually be trying to pull through here, possibly. Oh, no, I wasn't. I was just getting into melee here. I think I was trying to just get around this side of the Silver Shields, because I can see they're making a little bit of headway. If we can get troops here, then we might be able to get into their back. But with the addition of 46 Gold Legion of Umbar, I could see that just wasn't going to happen, so I just pulled them back off the front line. There's no sense in them getting tired if they don't have to. This unit of Black Swan Arbalists is unfortunately out of ammo. I do believe my other unit of them is out of ammo as well now. Oh, no, it's not. But this attack is now underway again. We're just trying to force path his Corsair pikemen through. I would not recommend doing this in Med 2. You're more likely to just get your pikes killed, because again, and with higher tier pikes it's less important, with halberds it's slightly less important. With stuff like Corsair pikemen, their stats are so bad that they really do rely on that formation they have. But running these Fountain Guard and Limloth in, that addition of quality might provoke Bilbo to commit something of quality in return. Possibly this unit of Ebon Legion of Umbar might be called for here. But it does look like he is just going to charge another unit of Corsair pikes in. Again, just trying to use these weaker units first. Not a bad shout, but I personally would have committed maybe... I mean, what does he have left over here? A couple of units of steel bows, some crossbows. I know he's got these slingers. Like, he doesn't actually have any just sword and board infantry left, does he? I guess I must have done a bit more damage to him than I thought I did. Maybe I did actually wipe out a unit of them over here. Yeah, you can see the hole that trebuchet left. It doesn't look like many bodies, but they're pretty important bodies to take down. And you can see over here exactly where those silver shields were. There's just like very few of their dead bodies, and there's a lot of mine. But over here it looks a lot more one-to-one. Here it's very much like many of his, few of mine. Again, over here, many of his, few of mine. There's a lot of spaces where I won, but there is one very clear space where the silver shields were, where it's just so uncontested that it's not even funny. For a second, Argus was thinking about committing his Axemen of the Sarnak over here, but he did think better of it. At this point, I'm thinking, alright, it's probably smart for me to send infantry over here. Argus looks like he's got this down pat, especially since I've committed my... I'm fairly sure I've committed my crossbows this fight. At least one unit of them. The other unit of them is up here again. Well, it was shooting into the back of these Gold Legion of Umbar. But now these guys just free to get kills in melee. I mean, they will go down. They're not the greatest 2 HP unit in the world, but they're still 2 HPs. They're going to get kills whatever happens. They've got, even if they're not the greatest quality, they've still got a second hit point to really fall back on, you could say. The addition of Pelargir Marines, these Corsair pikemen, it actually looks like their formation's getting almost buckled here. The Corsair pikes over here, of course, they're not going to look too healthy at the end of this. Just backed up into a wall like this, but I mean, they've still got enough men there to be a bit of an annoyance. Another unit of fragile auxiliary slingers being committed. That AP that they have is actually going to be really quite useful. At this point, looking at things, it is really just like missiles left available to Bilbo here. He's got he's got 2 units of pikes left, but other than that, and I mean obviously he's got his Guild Legion here. But other than that, infantry-wise, we do have a massive numbers advantage here. It's 64 to 70. We are evidently ahead. I mean, I've got some pretty high-quality 1 HP units here. Axeman of the Sarnak again, relatively high quality. If they could catch out some stuff like these Adunaroth Legion Steelbows here, which I would not advise. There's so many missiles out here that even if you manage to catch someone in melee, you would just get shot from 4 different angles to the point where you would absolutely lose that fight. I mean, even though we do have a lot of infantry left, we don't really feel comfortable taking it off of... We need to keep a unit at least on each of the front lines, really. I mean, I've got a unit of 94 Blacksworn Arbalists here. These guys, they could be very useful in the melee fight. And obviously, Untitled Champion's probably the most elite 1 HP unit left alive, except possibly the Fountain Guard. In fact, the Fountain Guard may be a more elite. In fact, they have to be, because they're dedicated. Guild Legion of Umbar again. That second hit point, it kept them looking healthy for a decent chunk of time, but now those second hit points are going, the AP that the Pelargir Marines offer just seems like it's going to be a bit too much for them, especially now that these Fountain Guard are getting stuck in. Adunaroth Legion cohort as well, they don't have that second hit point, but they are still pretty good sword and board units. And again, these Silver Shields of Goble Merland, they would hold for a long time, but now that the Fountain Guard are in there, that AP Phalanx is going to rip them apart, really. You can see there, they lost about 7 men in about 10 seconds. So that does go to show that if you can get the right units against them, they are absolutely not invincible. And the right units are, honestly, just AP polearms. Because even if they do get knocked slightly further back, just the fact they've got a bit of reach to them as well does mean that they are going to be very, very nice. Ebon Legion and another unit of Corsair Pikemen now being committed to this front line as well. Just trying to push through the formation, I think, of the Fountain God and Nimloth, maybe? But with stuff like Axeman of the Sarnak and... I mean, not so much Gondor Archers, but Axeman of the Sarnak especially, Pelargir Marines. If I had my Untitled Champions actually in the fight as well, they would do work. These guys, they're not looking the healthiest. And I think I might charge this unit of Blacksworn Arbalists in, just because it does look like we're getting forced back a little bit. Just having another 94 men in the front line is... it's always going to be useful. But now we're really getting around the flank of this fight. Adunaroth Legion cohort, they're slowly but surely going to die here. Then even the Guild Legion are going to die quicker, as are the Silver Shields of Goble Merland. As I said, any pike unit without their formation, it's going to die a lot quicker. Trebuchet crew coming over here once the job is done. Typical Gondorians, leaving it down to the Dolamrothians to do all the work. Oh, I'm just kidding. Gondor here, played by Argus, they did a very, very good job. I think I got lucky here insofar as, like, I put myself in between a rock and a hard place, and I just about managed to claw my way out of it, not looking too bad. And I managed to make... obviously, I gave Thomas like a very bloody nose for that. And a massive help with that is probably the Trebuchet, to be honest. Getting a few kills here on those patrician units, some crossbowmen, dead crossbows there. Not too bad. Obviously, I absolutely should have done so much better with my cav. But I just didn't. If I charged in, just retreated, maybe got some charges into the rear of those silver shields, maybe. Could have done work if I'd got some charges into those crossbows or even patrician legionnaires. That would have been very, very nice. But as it stands, this front line is actually about to just collapse, really. The AP, all the AP on this front line, combined with the decent quality that my Black Swan Arbalists and the Fountain Guard offer, is actually doing a pretty good number on those Gold Legion and Adunaroth. So yeah, it's going to be a complete victory over on this side of the settlement, which does just leave Bilbo, really. Bilbo, me, and Argus are really the only people with troops actually left. And now the crossbows are really starting to try and get their work done here. Obviously, the shields that these guys have is going to be very, very useful. And we do have a lot of Gondor Sword infantry in reserve just in case. I pulled back my Untitled Champions as well, just because I really don't want these guys getting shot. And I do also tell Argus, you know what might be an idea here? If we just, like, pull back, Bilbo is most likely going to charge into the settlement. And again, like I said earlier, the main thing that really keeps pikes alive, right? Especially low-tier ones, like these Corsair pikemen here, is the formation they have. If we can just break that down, like hit them from this side, hit them from this side, hit them from this side. No matter how low quality the units that are hitting them are, even Gondor archers, they'll do a number on Corsair pikemen. And we also are just trying to get any of our important units out of the line of fire of these crossbows, so Bilbo doesn't have a choice but to come into the settlement with his pikes. What I honestly would have done would have been actually keep these Haradrim auxiliary slingers with those pikes. So at the very least, you can use them to just block this, or maybe block that, or just hold these guys. And as it is, this unit of archers, this unit of arbalists, this unit of my units here, and Argus's units here, that's going to do a lot of damage to these Corsair pikes, especially now we're all up in their face. Like this, they don't have their formation set, so they're going to lose a good, like, 10 men, I would have thought, before they actually get their formation set, at which point they're significantly less dangerous. And you can see, actually no, they are steady, but these guys, they're wavering, and the Ebon Legion, they're not going to take too thankfully to this. Oh wait, no, there were a Adunaroth Legion cohort, like, hidden somewhere, and they still have javelins left. But, I mean, these Corsair pikes, they're wavering. They might rout. A charge from these Untitled Champions into their flank, you know, getting into the side of them. They're taking crossbow fire all while they do this, but at this point I'm thinking, I don't actually have that many troops left anyway, so if my general does die here, it's not the end of the world. But these Corsair pikes, they can absolutely rout here. They don't have good morale whatsoever. I'm lucky insofar as he is actually shooting into the front of shielded units. Actually, he's going after the Axeman of the Sarnak here from the almost the right angle. Crossbows, of course, are going to do work against stuff like Untitled Champions, but these Corsair pikes, they rout. I mean, we're going to be able to get some cheeky kills off these while they're running away. Then we can shut these Adunaroth Legion cohort down in melee, so no javelins for you, mister. And that does also free these Gondor archers to hit these guys in the flank as well. Another unit of Corsair pikes routing here, 45 of them. I mean, yeah, all of these Corsair pikemen routing, running for the hills. They will most likely return, especially the unit of 79 of them. But we've managed to get around the flank here. These Haradrim auxiliary slingers wavering as well. But if we can get around the flank of these Ebon Legion, again, they're not... None of the Legion units of Umbar are the greatest units ever in terms of melee prowess, like 2 HP. They're actually relatively weak 2 HP units, that said, all things considered. But unit of 37 Corsair crossbows, that's not a guaranteed return. 42 isn't either. And again, like I said, the unit of 79, they probably would. The 42 might return, but I doubt the unit 37 will. Obviously 79 pikes in the late game is still like dangerous, but it's a lot less dangerous than 210. These Adunaroth Legion cohort, they are unbreakable, but if we just get up in their faces, they should die relatively quickly. Especially against stuff like AP Pelargir Marines, against stuff like Black Swan Arbalists, they're not going to do the greatest. And stuff like Untitled Champions will do work against them. And we are pushing these Ebon Legion back. They're slowly but surely taking casualties. I mean... yeah, no, these guys, they haven't returned yet. Again, the unit of 42 might, but... at this point, I can fairly confidently say I believe that Bilbo is literally just down to missiles. This unit of Corsair crossbows is now actually out of ammo, which is huge. That's a unit of 122 that is out of ammo. This unit does, however, still have ammo. These steel bows do have ammo. All the steel bows have ammo left, and they are actually going over to this side, which does mean that we might have to put some soldiers over. 7 Harondor cavalry is not the biggest deal in the world. And these 2 raw Cataphracts aren't really going to get past this. They're probably going to die. Oh wait, no, they do. They do. I feel like I remember thinking that in the actual bat itself as well. But I think Argus is going to turn around his Fountain Guard. Just to deal with them. The annoyance. They do get a charge into these Gondor archers, and it's a pretty big one as well. Especially since it's only a unit of 2. But at this point, they've been just trapped by Fountain Guard and Nimloth. They're probably... oh no, one does escape. And these 7 Harondor cavalry as well probably aren't too long for this world. They're shaken. Putting out a melee, they're probably going to rout at some point. I wouldn't so much say it's a testament to the Ebon Legion of Umbar's skill that they're still alive. I mean, obviously their skill is decent, but it's probably more due to the fact that the units they're fighting, as archers here, Axemen of the Sarnak are probably the ones getting the kills. Obviously, Untitled Champions aren't bad at all. But I would say the fact they're not dying is largely just due to the fact they're facing off against archers, and there's not actually many angles where we can really hit them from. They've actually managed to get pushed back into a place where it almost favours them. The addition of a unit of Corsair crossbows and these Harajmal auxiliary slingers returning, Bilbo's front line isn't looking horrendous. Like, it's not looking strong, anywhere near as strong as it was, but it's not looking terrible, you would have to say. There we go. This other unit of Corsair crossbows decides to, now that the time is right, to start shooting into these Gondor archers and Axemen of the Sarnak at the top of this hill here. It's not a bad shout. These Adunaroth Legion steel bows and Mineral Lardu are just trying to get set up here. I would honestly say to, I think I said to Argus, you might be an idea to just try and charge him. Because, and I think, well, yeah, no, Argus I'm sure was thinking that as well. I think he was actually. But we were definitely both on the same wavelength for most of this battle. Just whenever I said, you know what, this might be an idea, he was pretty much already on it. I mean, if we can catch out this unit of steel bows, it's a pretty good unit to catch out, that said. As far as Bilbo, actually, yeah, just pulling them out, getting like a unit of crossbows here, unit of archers here, unit of archers here, that's just going to be devastating. So yeah, Argus doing the right thing there and pulling back. He does return his back to the missiles, but it's going to be for such a short period of time that I don't think they'll do too much. I mean, it's a bit risky having your general all the way back there when you're getting shot, but that's just a game thing more than anything. These Corsair crossbows, they're okay in melee, but again, against dedicated units like Gondor Sword and Spear Infantry, they're nothing, well, they're pretty bad. And against stuff like Untitled Champions and what remains of my Black Swan Arbalest, they're not going to do well against at all. Going after the Trebuchet, which is an interesting idea with those steel bows. He might... I think at this point he just wants to go after what he can, really, because there's not really anything here that's viable for him to shoot. If I was Argus, I would have honestly just kept his Trebuchet crew out there. Though actually, it's a much worse angle to shoot them there, to be fair. A lot more of those arrows hitting the dirt because they had to go up and then down. This unit of Gondor archers just really just biting the bullet here. These Harondor cavalry, however, this might actually be their last charge. And indeed, yeah, they do rout. So, I think that's, Tunnel State, completely gone now. If I'm not mistaken. Now he turns his Steelbow's attention back to these Axemen of Sarnak. But he does actually get a few hits on these Ebon Legion of Umbar, which is somewhat unfortunate for him, but again, they're pretty resilient, and it's not going to be the biggest thing in the world. These Adunaroth Legion Steelbows have managed to get somewhat around the flank, but it's not the end of the world, especially with another unit of Gondor Sword Infantry arriving on the scene. These Middle-Ardu Nazrakadar are charging in as well, and Bilbo does still have a unit of crossbows, those Castamir's Rangers hidden out here somewhere. At this point, these two units of Steelbows are out of ammo, I believe. Actually, no, the Middle-Ardu definitely aren't at this point. The Adunaroth Legion Steelbows might be, but the Middle-Ardu certainly aren't. This unit of Steelbows still has ammo, this unit of crossbows still has ammo, but I think the Steelbows will be out of ammo relatively soon. Again, that limited ammo supply they have really does mean you have to pick your targets, really. And he's not done a bad job at doing so. I mean, probably the best time to use that Steelbow ammo would have honestly been against me. Because Argus, he's got a couple of good units, but nothing he's got is really like Steelbow ammo worthy. Whereas I had actual good troops like Dismounted Knights, the Silver Swan. I had some of my Halberd unit, which is pretty good. I had some Knights. Belfalas Marines probably weren't worth shooting. I think they're called Princess Coast Guards, but nah, that might be your Dawn of Stays though. Can't remember what they're actually called right now. As you can tell, I'm not really a Belfalas player. And then obviously my Guard of the Haven Wing, I believe it is, or it's Knights of the Haven Wing, one of the two. They would have been a very, very good target for those Steelbows to go after. Obviously, they're unshielded, so really quite good. I mean, Perithil Champions as well, probably pretty good for those Steelbows to go after as well, you would have to say. Moving that unit of Pelargir Marines over here is definitely a good shout. 50 AP units. AP is what you really need against Adunaroth here. Because the Steelbows, again, they're not dedicated infantry, and they would probably lose a fight to a unit of Pelargir Marines, I would say. Just because of the fact they have it. The Pelargir Marines are AP in melee, and the Steelbows aren't. And especially with all the basic Gondor unit support that they have, it's just going to be too much. The Middle-Ardu, again, the AP is going to be very useful against them, but they have enough quality in them to the point where the AP might not be as anywhere near as important. This unit of archers, I can't remember if I would say don't charge it into the rear of that. He might not have seen the crossbows. I don't think I did either. But at this, yeah, there we go. He sees the crossbows now, and he does decide, alright, yeah, no, I need to pull him back. And this unit of Corsair Pikemen is routing, probably never to be seen again. This unit of Corsair Crossbowmen must be relatively close to being out of ammo, maybe a volley or two left. This unit of Adunaroth Legion steel bows is almost gone, as are the Ebon Legion actually, down to 17. So not completely gone, but they're getting there. It's slow, but we are making progress. These Gondor archers, they have pretty much been successfully kited by Castamir's rangers. I mean, they do actually have a bit of a hill to protect them here. I mean, obviously, they don't have shields like the rest of what Gondor have, really, but Gondor archers being shot isn't really the be-all and end-all here. But would much rather be shooting stuff like Pelargir Marines, for example. With those crossbows, especially elite crossbows like they are. These Corsair crossbowmen, again, they must be almost out of ammo at this point. They can't have much left. Unless they have a lot more ammo than I give them credit for. But no, there we go. They're out of ammo now. And that's just another makeshift infantry unit that Bilbo is going to have to send in. But at this point, it is really looking like a defender victory. I mean, the Minoladu is still like a massive force to be reckoned with that could actually cause us issues. But the front of the settlement is just looking weaker and weaker. Down to pretty much their last unit there. This unit of Corsair crossbowmen. Castamir's rangers as well. Not the greatest. Getting a rear charge into the Minoladu, even though it's archers, might get a few kills more than he would otherwise. Just because 2 extra charge bonus does mean that maybe an extra hit or 2 does in fact land. But another just pull out in order to try and once again guard those Castamir's rangers there. Which is probably the right call. Even though they're archers, the less option you can give them to shoot into them, the better. Because numbers, they still really matter in this case. You're going to need a lot of them in order to bring down that unit of Minoladu. Especially when pretty much all the numbers you've got are relatively low tier. I mean, Pelargir Marines again, they're going to be pretty efficient against Minoladu. But they're not going to be like the be-all and end-all. Arx's general actually behind enemy lines. Pretty dangerous from him here. Very, very reckless, actually. Could he fall? Is the question. In fact, is he going to fall? I mean, my general's been in the thick of things for a decent chunk of time now. But I don't think he's actually been, like, near the forefront of the fighting. But, yeah, no, I do pull him back. Only to charge my Parathil Marines right back in. Not Parathil Marines, Parathil Champions right back in. I think, you know what, we can route Corsair Crossbowmen. Adunaroth Legion Steelbows, no, but the quicker we can deal with them, the better. Because again, if we can deal with them, we free up a lot of units to just, like, go around here. And just hit these guys in the back, really. Getting Castamir's Rangers, probably we'd rather them shoot Gondor Archers if they're going to shoot anything, but again, it is still whittling down our numbers. Minoladu, they've lost a few men, but I think that honestly might actually be to do with the crossbows. The crossbow bolts that miss might actually just be hitting the Minoladu. Or these Adunaroth Legion steelbows in the back. Which is actually going to do a decent chunk of damage to the Minoladu. A couple of them are actually falling to these Gondor archers as well. Obviously, I did give Minoladu a slight buff to their melee a little bit, I think, in the current build for testers, but I can't remember whether that is actually true or not. Because I just felt like their spears, they're meant to be more tanky than deal damage in melee. And indeed, yeah, there we go. Argus' general does drop. Which, I mean, normally in a Gondor army at this point, it wouldn't be too much of an issue. You'd probably be down to stuff like your Fountain Guard, Citadel Guard, your much higher morale units that are significantly less prone to routing is most likely what you'd have left. But with this Argus army, you've got a lot of your bog standard Gondor units who they couldn't rout if things aren't looking too good for them. And as you can see here, I did say the Minoladu did still have ammo. Getting some crossbow bolts into the front of these Gondor sword infantry, but still they keep coming. It's almost like a horde of zombies at this point. There's just so many of them that no matter what you do, there will always be more. But Bilbo is just trying to shoot them to pieces at this point. But again, it's not a bad shout, but it's just the numbers at this point. The sheer amount of numbers that, well, Argus really has left. I'm contributing about 80 men, if that, to this war effort, I think. Maybe less. So, yeah, it's really down to Argus at this point. I mean, what I've got is really quite good, but it is still low numbers. It's not going to do the most. Bilbo's got his Minoladu on guard mode, so they can continue shooting even when caught in melee, which I would say is absolutely the right decision to make in this situation. Especially since it's only Gondor sword infantry that are catching them in melee. The amount of damage that these guys are going to be able to get off, they might get 1 or 2 kills off, but if there's a unit of Pelargir Marines, that's slightly more risky, because they could actually cut their way through these guys, maybe taking them down to 45 in 2 volleys as opposed to killing like 1 or 2 in that time. But yeah, this is pretty much what is left of the fight. There's a little bit left on at the main choke point, or at least what I would class as the main choke point. It's the front of the settlement. And then you've got the back choke point here. You got like some side entrance there, and then you've got almost like a second entrance there. They're almost the 2 main entrances, these 2 here, I would say. That's almost the back gate. That's almost like the front gate, I would say. Because obviously this is probably the widest choke point I think there is. Although that might be wider, actually. Actually, just looking at it, there's a lot of dead bodies here. Just looking at all the dead bodies. If you look out here, there's even more. There's a sheer level of carnage that went on at the Cardland outpost. Oh. I mean, that's a map name, but this is more like a... It's more like a southern Gondorian, although not quite Harondor outpost, I would say. Almost like close to Belfalas, right? Somewhere close to there. Might look on the wikis to see if there's a suitable place name for this once I'm done recording. But yeah, that's probably where this is set. Obviously, Belfalas have to be close enough to be able to reinforce relatively quick in this situation, and obviously it has to be somewhere Gondor control at this point. Otherwise, it doesn't really make much sense that they're in control, unless it's like a counterattack of the Adunaroth Empire and Castamir. That's always a possibility. So maybe it is somewhere in Harondor. But I think that arguably this is just somewhere in southern, not quite Harondor Gondor, but southern Gondor. And there we go. Corsair crossbows are out. It's really down to the unbreakable units now. 5 Adunaroth Legion steelbows and 2 Ebon Legion. They're not going to be able to stem the tide of this horde of archers. Really, it is literally just archers at this point. Some Gondor sword infantry left as well. And obviously my troops, who are actually just archers. But over here, the Minoladu doing a wonderful job at just holding the line. But again, this isn't everything we've got. There's a massive... I mean, there's a good 50 Fountain Guard and Nimroth heading over. With that type of quality, the Minoladu probably can't win that fight with them there. With the addition of 126 Gondor archers as well, yeah, it's not looking too good for them. Argus does start sending his troops over, and I've got my general just dueling this pikeman here. Just trying to get a few cheeky little kills for him. And ironically, in the battle, he definitely does survive this, but we'll see if he survives it here. Obviously, replays do have a habit of having the occasional desync. And indeed, yeah, there we go. The general does actually get the kill there. And that's the final kill on this front, actually. My general gets, which is pretty nice. Nice to be able to, for my general to be able to claim that role. With Argus moving a few units over here, he's going to be able to shut down those crossbows here. And the Minalazu, they're just going to get outflanked eventually. Now, actually, the only generals left alive now are mine and Bilbo's. You can see the actual, like, Castamir. But for this, I guess he'd be more like Adunaroth. No, he wouldn't be. At this point, no. It's far too late for that. It's some Umbarum guy, basically. Let's just call him Jeff. So Jeff here is he's facing off against a Pelargir Marine. Things aren't looking too bad for him. He fell over a little bit back there, but he's got his 45 Minalazu and his Rakadar surrounding him. He should be pretty fine. Pretty safe right there. Obviously, he is still in the front line, so there is that to worry about. And these Castamir's Rangers just charging up the hill to join them. And the Minalazu are actually pulling themselves off the front line here because, again, they've still got a bit of ammo. I don't think it's enough ammo for them to necessarily win this fight, considering the numbers Argus has left. And the fact that Castamir's Rangers, while they're decent in melee, they're not going to be able to beat back all of this, especially not with Fountain Guard left. Fountain Guard will be able to win this fight here. Probably single-handedly, to be honest. At the very least, with like a unit of 30 archers, they would be able to win that. For sure. These Pelargir Marines try to do a last samurai charge, but they do unfortunately rout before getting there. However, this unit of 41 Gondor archers and this unit of 24 Gondor archers, they might have slightly better luck here. Where have I put my general? I honestly don't know. My guys, my like 70 guys that are left are somewhere. It might honestly be in here. That's a possibility. Maybe. I don't see their shields. I'm sure they've like gone outside. Might be able to see them. Who knows? Who knows? Oh, there we go. They were hidden inside a building. Yeah, I've got about 50 soldiers left, 11 Untitled Champions. I'm fairly sure there's a second unit of Black Swan Arbalists that I've got. Maybe they're already in the fight? That's a possibility. Again, I don't see them. In fact, yeah, no, it's like 2 units of 16, I think. And then I've got 11 Untitled Champions in there as well for good measure. So, I mean, I'm not completely out of the count, but I am literally onto dregs of what my former glory once was. These Gondor archers here, their job isn't to win this fight against Minalazu. They'll do some damage, don't get me wrong. But ultimately, we do both know they will lose this fight against them. That second hit point and actually just better melee combatant nature they have is going to mean they win that fight. There's just not enough of them. But all we really need them to do is just like hold for long enough for us to break through these Castamir's Rangers here. There's 68 of them left. Argus is just trying to force path his way through into the back of these guys. I would have honestly forced path, but in order to just hit these guys more. Just get more of them in melee so they will just die quicker. They're down to 65 men now, 62. And obviously Castamir's Rangers here, they can rout. So if they're put under enough pressure, they will rout. And especially if this general of Bilbo's dies here, surely he's going to be able to beat this unit, this archer here, right? You'd have thought Gondor archers, they don't exactly train to be caught in melee, really. I mean, they're not, obviously they have that sword there, so they can't be the worst, but you'd expect the general of Umbar to be able to pretty easily deal with a unit with an archer. But now there's two of them, it's no longer a fair fight. He gets knocked over. Poor guy. Gotta feel bad for Jeff there. Yeah, this is it's actually relatively close. It's 90 to 98. I mean, 10% the difference, 8% even the difference at this point. It's relatively close, but it's not the closest, but it's the closest we've ever got when we've done a map like this, I believe. The Elrond one we did might have been closer, but I want to try and get a different one for Elrond, I'm thinking. But yeah, the Minalardu, they're gonna hold for a decent chunk of time, but they are ultimately all that is left of this Umbar assault. Yeah, there we go. The Castamir's Rangers there routing. So I will actually just put this up to 6 times, actually, I reckon. And again, Bilbo's general, he is still alive at this point, just about. As is mine. I think he did get some kills on these archers, but now there's actual dedicated infantrymen in the fight. Bilbo's general does, unfortunately, fall away there. And I'm just holding a few of my guys in reserve, but I do pull them around the flank, I believe, in order to try and get a rear charge into these Minalardu. To maybe end the battle 3 seconds earlier or whatever. There's so few of them that it doesn't really matter at this point. All of them are in melee anyway. If my general had died here, that would have just been so embarrassing. And there we go. It is a victory. You can see there, Argus bring a massive amount of troops and obviously getting far more kills than I did. Because I did manage to put myself in between a rock and a very just hard place, really. Let's see what did the damage for me. My Untitled Champions, as you can see, getting 283 kills, while my Foresters not doing too great. That's probably down to the fact that pretty early on in that fight, I did have to just charge them in, because otherwise they would have caused a lot of issues for the rest of my troops. Tall Snake's forces. God of the Haven Wing, 310. Granted, most of that was on chaff. There was some patrician units that they had to grind their way through, so it's not complete worthless kills there. Belfalas Marines, not doing great, but that unit did pretty well, as did that. But across the board, my Belfalas Marines doing pretty disappointingly. You can see the units probably went up against 2 hit point units there, in this unit and that unit. Sentinels of the Seaward Tower, that's what they're called. Also doing pretty poorly, but again, they were out on the field, they were pretty isolated, so you can't really fault that at them. That's more the way I use them. And Smart Knights, the Silver Swan, again, not doing great, but I think they were going up against relatively high tier units, at least some of them, in the Gilded Legion. Black Swan Arbus, of course, some more of the units that I managed to save, getting 163 and 151 respectively. That's pretty good kill count for crossbows, especially with the reduced ammo that everything has now. You're going to get less kills at range, so the fact they got decent kills in melee as well is going to help. Dunedain Militia, of course, I absolutely anticipate them to get absolutely rolled over, and to no one's surprise they did. And then, obviously, the Cavalry, I use them incredibly badly, so they only got 57 kills between them. But thank you very much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Feel free to subscribe if you're around here. I try and upload relatively frequently. And especially now during the summer, I should be able to upload a lot more. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.